Hello, and welcome to Eerie River, chatting with people. Oops. Sorry, I told everyone before, make sure your YouTube's on silent or else we'll get like a feed, and then I went and did it. So lesson learned. But this is Michelle, and we are chatting today with some bloggers and YouTubers and essentially reviewers of the indie author horror scene, which is very important for all of us indie authors and publishers. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you are excited about this. Eerie River itself is a small independent publishing house where we publish the dark fiction category. So we publish horror and dark fantasy, dark speculative fiction, supernatural, all of that stuff. So today we have Aiden Merchant, we have Janine Pipe, and Ben Long as our reviewer. So please welcome in joining. We're going to start with Aiden. Hello, Aiden. How are you doing today? Oh, let's see if he knows he's on. There he goes. How are you today?
I see myself, so I'm assuming I'm on.
Yeah, once you go on there, you're live.
What?
So you are a...
All right. Yeah, I'm here.
Tell us what you are. What do you do?
Okay. So I'm a book reviewer, and I'm also a writer, and I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and my own website, and I'll do a lot of horror reviews mostly. I'll do some suspense and thrillers and a little bit of that, but a lot of what I've been doing for the last 2 years has been in the horror community.
All right, perfect. We're going to get back to you. I think we've got a little bit of a noise thing going on in yours. Might have cleared up by now. Oh, it might have cleared up. Okay. All right, Aiden. So you do horror and have been doing horror reviewing for the last 2 years. Where can we find you?
Okay, so on Instagram, it's at aidenmerchant.official. On Twitter, it's at aidenmerchant89. And then my official website is www.aidenmerchant.com.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to get back to you now that we've done a little intro. We're going to take you off, get back to you with the whole group, and we'll talk about how we all got into reviewing and the indie horror scene as well. So nice talking to you. I'll see you in just a little bit. Next one up is Janine Pipe. Hi,
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Oh, just not my computer.
Yeah. So what exactly do you do for the indie horror kind of scene?
Everything.
Yeah.
So I'm a writer, I'm an editor, I'm a reviewer, I'm a booktuber, and a podcaster.
Wow, that is everything.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So where can people find you?
I review for Scream Magazine, for Nightworms, for Horror DNA, and the Horror Oasis at the moment. They're the main places that I review for, as well as on my own booktube channel, which is Janine Pipe Horror Writer, where you'll usually find Ben as well.
Oh, that's excellent. All right, so I'm going to bring you back in just a little bit. I just wanted to give everyone a quick hi, and then we'll talk about how we got into everything.
Okay.
All right, see you in a minute. All right, and so that brings up Ben Long. Hello.
Hey guys.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So what do you do with the indie, because you know Janine, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I don't do as much as Janine, but I would say mostly I'm there as a book reviewer and blogger. I did start a booktube channel as well, but I think I'm on Janine's more than I'm on my own. And so, yeah, a lot of reviewing and just helping promote and just engaging with the community.
Oh, that's perfect. So where can people find you? What's your...
So my website is readingvicariously.net. And then on Instagram, I'm reading.vicariously. Twitter, I'm reads vicarious. And then I'm also a writer for Go Beyond the Veil, or Beyond the Veil, and Puzzle Box Horror.
Oh, wow. So you are everywhere.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a couple more years. Okay, so let's bring everyone back. All right, there we are. Well, we've got a few people that are live with us. We've got a Justin Lewis, hello. Andrew Spencer, Hyperactive Bookworm, that's name, I know her. Beyond the Veil, Go Beyond the Veil, hi. And then us. So a couple other people watching as well. So the indie horror scene is, hello, Andrew. Andrew Spencer just said hello. So I guess the big question a lot of people want to know is how do you get into this kind of thing? So why did you start reviewing books? Ben, that one, let's start with you.
Start with me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm an English teacher, and books and writing and all of that has always been a big part of my life. But for the last few years, I feel like the reading for fun just hasn't been something I've done or allowed myself to do because of work and just life and everything. And so I was trying to push myself back into that, and I wanted to do more writing and more reading. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna, as like to hold myself accountable, I'm going to put it out on the internet, and so, maybe some other people are going to see it, and some of my friends will see it, and so they can hold me accountable too. So that's what I started doing. That's why I started the blog and started it on Instagram, and just, reading and posting little reviews and pictures. And then it all just kind of spiraled from there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I got more involved with, I came across Sadie Hartman, Mother Horror. I came across Nightworms, and then that kind of led me further into the indie horror scene, indie horror community. And then I really feel like I've kind of found a home there, a second home. And so I've just stayed ever since.
Yeah. So you didn't start out reading specifically like horror and indie horror, It
was everything. And I still try to read everything, but it is, since I'm in the community so much, mostly horror at this point. I do love everything, but it's horror or horror adjacent. But yeah, I started with just a little bit of everything. But once I got a little more plugged in with, Nightworms and some of the other, just that side of the community, it just kept going that direction. Now it's pretty much all horror 24/7.
Yeah. Welcome to my world.
Yeah, it's great. I'm happy to be here.
How about you, Aiden? How did you get into reviewing and the indie horror scene itself? Just how did you get into it? Aiden.
Well, I wrote for music magazines for a decade under my real name. And so basically I kind of got burnt out on, yes, Aiden. I'm sorry, I think we have a lag. I was doing music reviews for a decade for some magazines like Alternative Press and Outburn. And I got burnt out on it. And I was already a writer. I've been writing since I was a kid. And I basically got online and found the writing community. It was mostly through Instagram. I learned all the people that do these book blogging, and I thought it was really cool, and I really enjoyed it. And it just kind of going over everybody's profiles inspired me to write more. And I was already writing a lot anyway, but it kind of kept that alive. I have a lot of attention span problems, so going on Instagram all the time and seeing people blog about books really helped me. So I decided to try it myself. Since I already used to write music reviews, I figured I'd try book reviews. And so I've just been, I found myself in the horror community, and that's pretty much where I've been the whole time for the last couple of years now. And I just, I love to review, and then I work on my own writing at the same time. They both kind of, play off one another, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. If you can, if you are reading and write, I find a lot of reviewers are also writers as well, which is pretty awesome to see, because then we get to see into their minds as well through their work, which is awesome. How about Janine? How did you get into reviewing
Janine
books?
has something coming out right now. So.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I saw that on your Instagram. You've got a bunch of stuff.
I'm sorry, I
coming out.
didn't hear the question.
That's okay.
So similarly to Aidan, I had been writing for quite some time, but travel writing.
I'm sorry, the internet connection.
One of my other passions, as well as horror, is Disney, and I've been blogging for some Disney travel companies for quite some time. And then I decided that I wanted to start writing for myself, and horror was obviously going to be because that was all I knew. And I didn't even know that book blogging was a thing, and reviews and things like that. And when I decided to start a horror blog, it seemed to be that was what people did, reviewing books. And I just fell into it, really. And that's it. So like a couple of years ago, I joined NetGalley. Again, I didn't even know what NetGalley was. I just saw it was something that you could go on and get books. And I thought, oh, this sounds good. And then obviously they presume that you're going to review it as well, and you need a blog to do that. So that was how it all started. And just from there, it was like, wow, this is amazing. And now I've got shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves of books.
Yeah, it definitely has like a big scope of like how, because everyone, let's be honest, wants a review on their book. So that actually probably does open up to another question, is how do you choose which books you want to do, and are you open to receiving like submissions from authors? Janine, how would you take that one?
Oh, sorry. Unfortunately, I have now closed myself off to people just approaching me. Mainly because of two reasons. One, I've got things from over a year ago or sat on my shelves that I just haven't had time to read yet, and I need to get to that before I start accepting new stuff. But also because I'm writing so much more, I just don't physically have the time. So when I wasn't writing so much, I had more time to read. That being said, because I review for a couple of big sites like Scream Magazine and Horror DNA, and indeed Nightworms, they get sent things and then they ask us to do it. So people have already, sort of like cut out the middleman. It's the books go to them and then they ask us to do it. So again, if I'm getting unsolicited people, saying, can you do this? Can you do that? I just can't accept it at the moment, which is a shame because, being a newer indie writer, I know how hard it is to get your book out there, and you just want everyone to have it and to see it. So what I'll sometimes say is I'll take a copy of the book, I'll stick it on my shelves, I'll do a nice picture, I'll show it in one of my YouTube videos. So at least it's getting eyes on it, but I can't promise when I'll actually be able to read it. And most people are quite happy with that because it's still exposure.
Yeah. Sometimes any exposure is exposure. Well, not sometimes, always.
Yes, that's it. And even a bad review is still publicity, isn't it? So that's, that's the way I always see it with things as well. But it's difficult because I know what it's like to try and get your stuff out there. But I just, there's only one of me. I've got a family as well. And I just, you get burnt out then. And then you start to almost feel resentful of reading something that somebody sent you. And it's like, oh, I don't actually want to read this, but I need to do it for so-and-so. So to make sure you've got fresh eyes, to give everybody that chance, I'm just winding down a little bit and just doing the ones that I'm actually being sent by editors and things, because it's the only way to do it. And as well as Ben and I interview the Silver Shamrock authors at the moment, we're doing the whole season of all of them. So we have all of the Silver Shamrock books to read as well, which are amazing and I would read anyway. But that's another whole set of books that we get sent to us. So,
well, Ben, what about you? Are you open to submissions? And if you are, how do people contact you? Is that something that you're doing right now?
Yeah, and it's something that, when I first got started in all of this, I've been doing it for a little bit less than a year, so it hasn't really been that long. And I just got really excited when I found out that people would send me books to read and review. That was like the most amazing things. Like I would tell my students about it and they're like, okay. But, so I was saying yes to everything. And I still have a bad habit of saying yes to everything. But it was starting to hit a point where, it's piling up, and I want to make sure I'm getting them out in a timely fashion and all of that. And so I've kind of reached the point where I'm not necessarily closed completely. I'm definitely doing, anything Nightworms, book parties. I'm doing those. I'm writing for Beyond the Veil, and so they'll send me comics, and I'll review comics. So if you want me to review a comic, best way is to go through them, and it probably ends up in my hands. But I've kind of reached this place where, I'm not going to say I'm closed completely, but I just have a dialogue with whoever reaches out and just kind of say, here's where I'm at. I can't guarantee necessarily a time frame, kind of like what Janine was saying, honestly, like certainly help promote it and put it out there in pictures and talk about it. And I'll read it at some point. I just don't know when that might be. And so, and it just depends on the person. Most people, are okay with that. I'm also a big mood reader. And so, there's a good chance that I say yes to books that sound really good to me. And so there's a good chance if it sounded really, really good, even if I didn't think I could read it a couple months from now, it ends up in the next few weeks on the top of my stack just because, I've gotten the mood of it and I wanted to read it. So,
yeah. No, that makes sense. And you have to make sure that you're giving yourself some time to do things. I did hear that sometimes reviewers will open themselves up for a couple months and be like, submit everything, I'll make my decisions within these 2 months out of the year, and then plan like their year in advance. But then you kind of miss out the little things that pop up, right? You're not that organized.
No.
I know, I wouldn't be either. I'd be like, give me everything always.
Well, and like when people that leaves out the spontaneity of, whatever could come up, whatever's coming out, then, what I'm saying, like whoever approaches you, that's kind of the fun of it, is never knowing what might show up in your, in your inbox. And so,
yeah. All right, Aiden, what about you?
So I guess, I'm sorry.
No way, I expected you to be like on a 4-second delay. So okay, go.
I know my internet's been terrible. So about a month ago, I closed off for requests, and the reason why I do this is because people still are always contact me, and if there's someone I already have a working relationship with, some of them don't even contact me; they just send me stuff.
I know, I'm like, I'm growing to something soon.
I still am putting those on my stacks, but more, I'd say. Oh, I'm excited for that. So with you guys, I've gotten the It Calls from the Forest series and It Calls from the Sky, and I loved all of those. So I've been waiting for something more. But I'll have publishers like you guys, and Silver Shamrock and Flame Tree. You guys are the ones that I generally, you guys send me something and I immediately put it at the top of my stack. So I guess it's more of people that I don't know already. If they're contacting me, I'm kind of turning them down at the moment just because I have a couple hundred books on my shelf right now that I'm waiting on. That were books that I purchased myself. And then I have a stack of books that have been sent to me for review. And I always make those priority because, like, being a writer myself, I know the cost that goes behind it. People, I don't want to say it's time sensitive, but I feel it. I mean, it's not necessary that it's an obligation that's there. People are always saying, reviewers will review on their own time. And I try my best to get stuff out by release date. I'm falling behind right now. And that's why I closed off, because I'm missing release dates. I'm about a month behind on things. So I'm still reviewing some Silver Shamrock books right now, for example, that released in March. And I'm just getting to them. And I feel bad about that. So that's why I closed off mostly. But I will probably reopen late summer and be more available to new people again.
Well, that's good to know, especially for people that have some single author books that are coming out. And even for those single author books, I think as long as it gets done ever, I don't think it necessarily needs to, sometimes it's great to be around release date, but if it's a newer author, anytime I can say it's probably the best time, because it's just to get someone to read it is really exciting. So now if anyone's listening, if you guys have any questions while we're chatting, like throw them in the comments. and we will definitely make sure we're putting them in while we're chit-chatting and stuff like that. So I know I got a couple questions off of our author, because I have Eerie River Publishing has an author group where we talk about our releases and things that are coming up and all that other fun stuff. So I had a couple questions from some of those. A lot of people wanted to know, what is the top don't do when reaching out to a reviewer? So I know that some people are very aggressive. Or can be. So is there something that will get someone blacklisted, like don't do this kind of thing for you? Aiden, let's start with you.
I've been lucky. I haven't really had anybody be poor with me, but I have had friends in the community that have really been harassed. And I would say that'd be the big thing. If you're constantly contacting someone and being rude to them and mean, they'll shut you down. And then of course, if we find out that you're posting horribly bigoted stuff, you're racist, you're, whatever, posting these horrible opinions, people aren't going to want to work with you. So I would say those kind of things would make me blacklist an author. And I have had recommendations that I've heard, come from Brian Keene or somebody saying, hey, this person's, been sexually harassing reviewers or something like that. And I'm not going to review them. But personally, I luckily have not really had any bad behavior toward me, but hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, exactly. Ben, what about you?
Honestly, it's similar to what Aiden just said. I think I've also been fairly lucky in that I haven't gotten a lot of really just aggressive, harassing kind of, but I've heard, from other people that can happen in the community. And I would feel like if that were happening to me, that would be an instant turnoff for sure. I've gotten requests where it was just, hey, here's my book, read it. And, that kind of thing. And I need a little bit more than that. There's better ways to approach reviewers, I think, than just kind of throwing something at them or, say, hey, can you buy my book or, whatever it is. But yeah, definitely the aggressive behavior would be a turnoff. And then honestly, what he was saying about just how you present yourself in the community as well, is also something, because you word travels or you see things on Twitter or whatever, and I don't ever get involved with anything, but I see things, and if I know that, I'm going to remember it, and that might play a factor in just whether or not I might want to read what you write. So
yeah, whether or not you want to work with someone. And I think that's something that a lot of authors do not understand or haven't necessarily thought of when they are doing social media. They need to present themselves in a professional manner, because that is your brand. So whether or not, if this is your personal, and I tell my authors when I have single author books, I'm like, if you have a personal page on Twitter that you're communicating about your book and stuff, that's fine, but don't let that mark that as private and start brand new with the public one, because no one wants to hear all these things of you being anti-government or anti-vax or anti-mask or just idiots. No one wants to work with those types of people, and you need to present yourself in a professional manner. And I think that's the same with you guys as well. I'm glad to know that maybe you're paying attention to that, because we don't want to be promoting people that are horrible human beings. Janine, have you had any experiences with aggressive people, or is there any do not do's for you as a reviewer?
I think I've been lucky as well in that I haven't had it to me personally, but as has been alluded to, I know other reviewers, both male and female actually, that have been harassed and had horrendous things said to them and sent to them and all kinds of things. And that's just wrong in any way, shape or form. So that would be an immediate, and those authors have been blacklisted, blocked. They won't get our business. The big thing for me is similar to what Ben said. It's that sometimes people are very presumptuous. It's like, oh, you're a reviewer, I'll send you my stuff. And there's no introduction even. It's like, I followed you. Hello, here's my book. And it's just like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's just reviewers, because I get that all the time. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy your book. What are you doing? You just liked me. Like, why are you trying to shove your book in my face?
Exactly. I think some authors need to go to marketing classes and find out exactly how you interact with other humans. Because, you know, if you're going to shove something at me, it's going to make me not want it.
Yeah, so I think that is very good. Maybe that's a good courtesy just to let everyone know, is, to be quite honest, the moment you like us or follow us, do not then just send us a message with your book, because honestly, we're not going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you don't give a little intro to it. You're just like, here's my book, read it.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, kind of to take that further, if there is someone who is started following me and has kind of started to interact outside of DMs, even where they're commenting on things, or, you know, we're having a conversation in the chat, in the comments of posts and whatever it is. And then they approach and say, hey, I noticed you like this type of stuff, right? I see what you really like. And, you know, I really like your style, or whatever it is. And then now here's what my book, you know, kind of approaches that way. So they build a little bit of a relationship, I guess. And there's engagement.
Yeah, like a rapport kind of.
Yeah. Before there's just suddenly, here's a stranger in your DMs or in your inbox. So, you know.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like we've got a couple questions. This one's from Go Beyond the Veil. Is this, and I apologize because I'm gonna look you up. Because I'm trying to figure out if this is a review or a publisher. But we rarely get indies trying to submit to our site, which means we have to chase larger organizations for contributions. What do you think prevents indies from just asking? Go Beyond the Veil.
Writers or reviewers?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Are you asking the reviewers why they don't review for you? We'll see. I'm gonna look them up on YouTube. So here's a question. Is there a type of horror that you would never read or review? So I know that everyone has a preference for what type of horror that they like to read. So do you guys have a preference on what you won't read? Aiden, what about you? Is there something that just is not for you?
The overly gory stuff, even though I've written some of it, I really don't like reading the stuff that's like cannibals, just tearing people to pieces. And then what's that other one called? It's punk something. Punk horror? I can't remember. It seems to always be a lot of just kind of seems like gore and sex nonstop, and I'm just not into that.
Okay.
I prefer horror that's more, I guess, suspenseful and character driven than the stuff that's more, I guess I would consider it more mindless. I just don't like slasher stuff in general. So it's nice when you get the authors that you can take as a slasher idea, but you got the characters to back it up. But I've read books that I ended up, putting down and not reviewing because it was just mindless. I can't do that kind of horror.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's definitely a few people that I know that don't do or aren't very much into the extreme horror. What about you, Janine? Do you like the extreme horror?
Yes, that's my favorite. That's what I write: extreme horror and splatterpunk. Yeah, definitely. I want all the blood, all the gore, all the depravity. Give it to me. Yeah. But I'll read any horror.
Is there something that you will not review or will not read? Do you have a line?
I love it. Yeah.
Do you have a preference of horror, like one genre of horror versus the other?
So at the minute it would be extreme. Give me anything extreme and I'll read it. Yeah.
Okay, everyone send and actually Justin said that too. Send the splatterpunk stuff to Janine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Okay, how about you, Ben? What do you have a line? Like, is there something that you just don't like to read?
Yeah, I guess that would be another thing I could add on. If you are a splatterpunk author, probably I'm not the best person for you. That also is usually where I will draw a line, is with the really extreme stuff, just personal preference. It's not really for me, although I will read anything that Janine writes. And there's some other authors that, dabble in more extreme stuff, and I'll read it because I know they're a good writer and they're telling a story or whatever. It's a lot of, the extreme that it's just trying to be in your face without characters and plot and really, those kinds of things. Just extreme for the sake of extreme that I don't really kind of, go with as much. And so that's, I guess that would be my line, the more extreme stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so yeah, that's a good thing to know. So we all know if you're an indie looking, do not send him extreme stuff.
Send it all to Janine. Yeah.
Who's not open right now, but maybe soon.
Right.
Eventually.
And there's stuff, there's stuff that's hard for me to read, like ever since becoming a dad, anything involving kids or young children, which never bothered me before, like in the same way, it is really hard to read. I'll still read it if it's a good story, but it's just tough. But yeah, the really extreme stuff, not for me.
Yeah. Is there a secret recipe to getting a 5-star review from you guys? Like, if you say no, I'm going to be like, people are going to send you garbage.
Well,
what do you need to have besides just great writing? But are there things that need to happen in order to get what does a book have to have or do to you or make you feel?
Yeah. Great writing definitely helps. So make sure you get a proofreader and editor and all of that kind of stuff, because that's immediately going to take me out of the book. But, I feel
I do think that's good for indie authors to realize, especially if they're self-publishing. The way your book presents does reflect what kind of review you're going to get, right?
It's hard for me to get past a lot of typos and errors and kind of formatting things like that. Just personally, it is. Yeah. But as far as getting 5 stars, I feel like it's a little subjective because, there's certain genres that I really like. So I'm going to probably end up, rating stuff in that genre higher as long as it's well done. But I really, really appreciate character-driven pieces in any genre. If I can emotionally connect with a character, then I am, much more invested in their story and the book as a whole, and it's going to grab my attention more. And so, emotional investment in characters is really big for me. And then just anything that can surprise me, subvert different tropes or just kind of switch it up in ways that I didn't expect, is instantly going to be a little bit more exciting as well. And so I would say those are kind of the 2 things for me.
Oh, okay. Aiden, what about you? Is there a special formula of how to get a 5-star review from you?
I want to say a formula. A book that really makes me feel is going to obviously get better scoring from me. A lot of the time, if you see a 5 from me, it's usually been rounded up on Goodreads or Amazon. I don't give genuine 5s that easily. But if I really love the book and I actually want to reread it, and soon, that's a good sign, because I don't reread hardly ever. So if I finish a book and I'm like, I want to read that again this year, chances are you're getting a 5-star because I must have really liked it.
Yeah, that's perfect. How about you, Janine? Is there something that you is there a way to get a 5-star from you? And then we're going to get into the question on how we handle a really bad book.
So I think that again it's very subjective, so there will be things that I like in a book that will make me think, oh my god, I love it, and it has to be a 5-star, that other people might not like so much. But I'm probably the opposite of what Ben was saying with like the formatting and things like that. I mean, you don't want it to be so bad that it takes you out of the story, but I think being a writer myself, sometimes I'll see a typo or something and I'll think, I know that's probably been through proofreaders, beta readers, editors and whatnot, and it's still, you know, Stephen King has hundreds of typos in some of his stuff. So things like that I kind of overlook. So a book could be riddled with typos, but if it's a brilliant story and if the characters are great, you know, you can work on your presentation, but you can't change your voice. So I think that's, you know, I tend to overlook things like that because being a writer, I know that mistakes can be made and it can have 10 different eyes on it and things still get, you know, missed. But for me, it would be character driven again, and coming of age is nearly always going to get a 5-star from me. I absolutely love coming of age. And again, because I like all the extreme and the spatterpunk and stuff, but you know, I also do agree that if it's just extreme for extreme's sake, then it probably won't be a 5-star. I don't need to be shocked. I need to have a story with shocking elements. That's the way that I was with the extreme and the spatterpunk as well, because I've read some absolute garbage, you know, from the extreme stuff where you just think, dear God, they literally just thought of every single disgusting sexual act and cannibalism and all of that and just threw it all into one thing just to make people think, oh, but actually there's no characters, there's no plot, there's nothing. That's not going to be a 5-star. But if you've got something like Off Season from Ketchum, which is obviously an amazing story with fantastic characters and all of that on it, then it's going to be a 5-star.
Awesome. So I think, like it has to have a plot, right? For any, no matter what, it has to have good, interesting characters that move the story. Here's one good question is, how do you tackle a really bad book? Full honesty, or do you tone it down a bit? Now, I know some reviewers have a rule that if they hate a book and it's like a DNR, do not read, did not finish, then they kind of ignore that it happened. What do you guys, how do you handle these books that you're just, Janine, you start, let's start with you. You finished up last.
It's hard. It really is hard, especially being part of the community and being a writer and knowing that that is somebody's baby. Somebody has spent all that time putting it together. And just because you don't like it, you know, doesn't mean that other people won't. So the thing I always try my hardest with is to make sure that people know this is my opinion. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean that other people won't. And I'll try and find as many positives as I can. So I did give a 1-star to a book for Scream magazine once, and I hated doing it, but the book was just not for me. But I made sure that they knew the reasons why. It was like written as a stream of consciousness, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not clever enough to understand that kind of prose. It was very confusing for me, but the plot was wonderful. If it had been written in a more sort of regular fashion, then I probably would have really enjoyed it. So I made sure that I put all of the positives into it, but I just couldn't get past the way that it had been written. So something like that, I will always try and, you know, I'll say that I didn't like it and I just couldn't get on with it, but I'll try and find as many reasons why other people might like it. If it's to do with content, though, that's a bit different. So I've seen some 1-stars and some DNFs for things that have got like specific rape scenes in them or something, where people have just been too uncomfortable to carry on reading. That's obviously personal preference as well. But I haven't come across that stumbling block yet because I read all the extreme and it doesn't particularly bother me.
Yeah.
I don't know what that says about me, but...
You got a hard shell. That's all right. You're fine. Aiden, what about you?
Generally, if I can't see myself giving it at least a 3-star, then I don't write a review. If it's, let's say it's a book that someone is expecting, like they've submitted it to me, then I will still put something on, like Goodreads is where I would do this. I would put, DNF, and I'll put a reason why. Try to be really fair about it. For example, I've had a couple books in the past year where I DNF because they kept brutally killing children. And as Ben was saying earlier, when I became a parent, that really began to bother me, and it makes me very upset when I come across that stuff in books. And I've had a couple in the past year that did that, along with something else extreme that really bothered me. And I just was like, I can't get into the story because I'm too bothered all the time. So I'm just going to DNF it. Doesn't mean, somebody else can't do it, but this is why I'm going to leave it behind. That's usually what would happen if I DNF. I haven't read too many books that are just terrible, so I don't review them. It's usually because of a content issue. If I'm actually writing the full review because I've read the book all the way through, I try to be really fair. If it's something I don't like, I'm still putting, hey, I really like the idea that they had here. It wasn't the execution that I would have done, or, what I would have liked to have seen done for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I try to be, I guess the way I would want to say is I try to be nice, because I've seen reviewers that it seems like they're trying to attack the writer and be mean about it. Like, oh, this sucks. What were you thinking? Blah, blah, blah. I try not to do anything like that. I'm a writer myself. I know if somebody wrote that kind of review at me, I would feel really crappy about it. And, even if I'm just like, well, everybody has their own opinion, it still felt like an attack. So I don't want anybody to feel attacked. I try to make it constructive, I guess.
And that's, because there is a difference between a constructive review and one where you're just bashing the writer. So even when it's a DNF, not a do not resuscitate, even when it's a do not finish, it's always good. It's good that you're putting that on like Goodreads, so that some people do realize, because sometimes there isn't that content warning, because some things are really upsetting to people. So it's good to have that in there for when it's like an extreme kind of situation. What about Ben, for you, honey? Honey. I can hear my kid in the background. That's why my brain went there.
For me, I feel like I've been blessed in the last year that I haven't read a lot that I've either DNF'd or even rated less than 3 stars. A lot of it. I'll still, no matter what it is, even if I didn't like it, I'm still going to write a review for Goodreads. And I might just not, I'm not going to go put it on social media and say, hey, everybody, look at this horrible book that I just read, so I'm not going to push it out. If it's 3 stars or above, then I'm going to promote it, but anything less, I just don't see a need to. But, and, as far as when I write that review, I definitely, kind of what Aiden was saying, like, I'm not trying to come from a place where I'm attacking the person or anything like that. And I don't want to be abrasive. I try to be honest with just, here's what I personally didn't like about it. Here's why it didn't work for me. Because I also know, like everybody's saying, that something that I don't like, somebody else might really enjoy, right? The extreme horror thing, that didn't work for me. Janine's going to love it. So, that's not anything against the author or the book even necessarily. That's just preferences come into it, and that kind of thing. So, definitely honesty, but not in a way that's attacking or anything like that.
Okay, perfect. We've got 2 more questions. I think we're coming up on the hour in the next 15 minutes. So I think we probably have one more room for one more question after these 2 are answered. So if anyone has a question, get it down now. Here's one from Go Beyond the Veil. Do you guys feel the use of social media to advertise indie books is drastically changing the market advertising landscape for writers, maybe negating the need for traditional marketing? Well, I don't know if that's necessarily for the reviewers or if it's for the publisher. But I think social media is starting to become like, that's essentially how you market now. There is no any other way to market except for social media. Because everyone's on it. Like this is how we do it. We get on YouTube, we get on Instagram, we get on Twitter, we make accounts, we tell our live story, we buy ads and all that other stuff. So even the traditional publishers are starting to do stuff like that. They just have a leg up in the stores. That's really the only thing. They're the ones that can push to get spaces on store shelves, where the smaller people and the small presses have to kind of scratch and claw our way onto like one little corner. But that's also because of book sales too. Like there's so many indie writers out there, so many indie authors. Like if you think about how many million books were published just through Amazon alone last year. The only way to have your voice heard is to be everywhere at the same time. So I think it's not necessary. I think social media is changing the way that we're finding our authors and finding our new books. So yeah, whether or not it negates the need for traditional marketing, I think maybe yes, it does a little bit, but you still have to pay for a lot of it. This is becoming traditional marketing now. Social media is becoming the norm. So advertisements in your newspaper, probably not so much. Here's a good question from David. How do you feel about reviewing individual stories in an anthology? So particularly if one or two you didn't enjoy as much as others, do you feel judging the antho is at a whole is better? So when, I guess, do you guys read a lot of anthologies? I know I send anthologies out. Okay, so we all read anthologies.
Yep.
That's good. Do you judge it as a whole? Like if you loved, like say there's 20, if you loved 18 and didn't love 2, do you mention those 2? Do you mention the ones that you love the most? How do you judge them?
Go ahead, Aiden.
Yeah, I didn't want to just like cut off anybody. I would say, like, for me, when I read an anthology, I'm going to expect there to be probably a few or even a stack of the stories I'm not going to like, just because there's so many different voices to be heard. I try to go by, I guess, my overall happiness with the book. So if I read a book, my anthology, I've had ones that I didn't like half the stories, but still half the stories was 200 plus pages of great content. I'm not going to hold that against the anthology. I actually still score it high. I'm like, hey, this was a 4 or 4.5 for me. Look at all these great stories. There's 20 stories in here I absolutely loved, found new authors I want to read. Sure, there's also these ones I didn't like, but I'm not going to go into them. They didn't work for me. Let me tell you why I like these stories and why you should look at these authors. So that's how I go about approaching an anthology. I can have stories that I absolutely hate in an anthology, but if I have so many other ones that I really loved, that, you know, that's what trumps my mind, is that, hey, I skipped some stories, I didn't do this, but this was really good. I found a new author here, a new author here. You know, that's what I go by. And when I write my reviews, I try to just focus on the ones I like and say why. And I don't really talk so much about the ones I didn't. I kind of just leave them off the review. And, you know, obviously the person reading the review kind of just assumes that those ones didn't work for me for whatever reason. I'm not going to be here to just blackball them. I want to tell you about the new authors that I found in this anthology, because that's what I see for anthologies. The whole purpose is finding new voices to read.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's what I think anthologies are great for doing, is to highlight those newer up and coming authors, as well as the ones that are more seasoned that have been in a lot of anthologies. So you can be like, I found a new person I'm going to follow. Because there's so many, a range of stories and a range of author like pedigree and ideas. So it's really cool how anthologies can put all that stuff together. What about you, Janine? Do you judge it all as one? Do you separate them? How do you do an anthology review?
Very similar to Aidan. If I like at least half, then I would still give it a decent review, that's for sure. I think that more and more people are reviewing, although they're still giving it a overall score. I see more and more people like Sadie does it, Ross Jeffries does it, that they literally will review every single story and like break down every single story in an anthology. And that's a hell of a taking to do that as well, to literally say what you like or don't like about every single one. But because my background started in anthologies, and because I'm an editor over at Candisha Press and we put out anthologies, really do appreciate that kind of thing as well. And definitely for finding new voices. Quite often, if I've got an anthology and there's some more famous people in there, if I'm struggling for time, I might not even read their stories because I already know their stories are going to be amazing. But I want to find those new voices, those people that, you know, it might be the very first time I've ever seen them. Jonathan Jans, for example, the very first thing I ever read of his was in an anthology. And I was like, whoa, this guy's amazing, because Jonathan Jans is fantastic. But if I hadn't have seen his story in an anthology, you know, he wouldn't have been somebody that I then went on and bought, you know, 100,000 of his books. So that is how, you know, people have found me that way, because that's how I started. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Ben, how do you do anthologies?
It's going to be pretty similar to Janine and Aiden. I wish I had the time and energy to do a breakdown, like an in-depth breakdown of every single story, because I have seen people do that, and it's really cool. Or even just, I try to, and it might not be for every single one, at least, especially the ones that I like. But, you know, when I'm reading an anthology, I'm taking notes on each story that I read, and I kind of give each individual story a rating. And then kind of at the end, it's like an aggregate almost of, you know, all of it. Okay, it was mostly, you know, 4 to 5 stars with a couple of 3 stars. That's going to be around, you know, like a 4-star or so, like that. I mean, I'm not very clinical with it, but
I was wondering, are you being like super teacher about it?
No,
and, like,
I'm not.
and then finding the average and putting the medium in.
No, not at all. No. So yeah, I don't even know if me rating each individual one is really doing anything or not. I just do it. But it helps me when I go back and, okay, because I have a horrible memory too. I'm like, what were the ones that like I really, really loved? I'm like, oh yeah, here's the ones and here's why, because I made notes. And so, but yeah. So I usually will rate it as a whole. And then, you know, kind of call out, here were some of the big ones though, that just really stuck with me, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. I feel like for me, because I read a lot of anthologies, I don't review them on social media or anything like that, but I read a lot of them. And if I can always tell if I really liked it, if I can remember some of the stories inside of it.
Yeah, that's.
So I'd be like, aha. Though, like, this was a really good one because it had an impact on me. Like, if I'm thinking about it in a day or two and a couple of stories, for me, I'm like, oh, well, that was a really positive experience, even though we're talking horror. But like, if I see myself in the mirror and it freaks me out, I'm like, yes, I read something scary today. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I'd like to just, is there anything that we missed? I don't think so. Oh, I did ask, does anyone have any, I have some questions written down, but your favorite, does anyone have any favorite horror tropes? And then we'll just do a quick. Aiden, what's your favorite horror trope?
I'm all for isolation.
Oh yeah?
Cabin in the woods, islands, Lost in the Forest in general. Just isolation. I love that stuff. And I also love something that it seems like a lot of my friends don't like, which is small towns, big cast, you know, like Under the Dome or The Stand.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I know a lot of people have a lot of trouble following the characters. I have problems following the characters. I'll get back to chapters where I'm like, which person was this again? But I just love having that wide variety of emotions to go through in a story. So big casts and then cutting them off. I just like that. I don't know.
Very cool. Ben, what about you? Do you have a trope that you just love reading?
I don't know as far as like specific tropes, because I really do like a lot of different things. But I mean, any of the tropes that go along with psychological horror or cosmic horror, and those are kind of my 2 big genres, at least right now, that I've really been enjoying. So the stuff that comes with that, for sure.
Very cool. And Janine, what about you?
I love anything where it's like wrong turn, you know, sort of like you're going off camping and you meet the hillbillies or the cannibals or that kind of stuff. And I love slashers as well, anything to do with that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it sounds like we've got a whole. I'm a big supernatural, paranormal, ghost story fan. Like that. I think those are the only things that can actually scare me in horror, and that's mainly because I believe in ghosts because I'm crazy. But like, so I'm like, this could really happen. So that's my trope that I just love reading. So we're doing an anthology of that very, very soon. But thank you so much for joining us. Let's go through one more time. We'll do a roundtable. You tell us where we can find you, your Facebooks, YouTubes, all that other stuff. So Ben, let's start with you.
Sure. So I am most active on Instagram, I would say. And so it's reading.vicariously is the username there. I am also on Twitter at Reads Vicarious. And then my website, where I post a lot of things outside of just reviews as well, or, has the contact page and everything, is readingvicariously.net.
Okay, perfect. Aiden, remind us, where can we find you?
Like Ben, Instagram's probably my hotspot. My username there is aidenmerchant.official. I'm also on Twitter, though I don't really get interactive too much on there, but that's username's aidenmerchant89. And then my website's www.aidenmerchant.com, and my reviews are always there, as well as the occasional, blog post or short story or something.
Perfect. And Janine, where can we find you?
See, I keep forgetting about Instagram, so find me on Twitter, which I think is Janine Pipe 28. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I forget myself. And that's the best place to interact with me. And then look out for me and Ben on my YouTube channel, which is Janine Pipe Horror Writer. That's the best place to find me.
All right, I'll make sure I have all of your links and stuff in the comments for after, so if people see us and they want to find you, they'll go down there. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, everyone that had their questions, and I hope everyone just had a really great time getting to know all of these great reviewers. So thanks so much, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you.